Hello and welcome to People, Politics and Power, where we engage with critical issues, thought leaders and change makers that are shaping the course of history, the trajectory of development and social justice. I am Imonia Marere. In a world where advocacy is both urgent and necessary, civil society organizations have become pivotal, and one that stands as firmly on the front line is Amnesty International. Amnesty International is a leading voice in the fight for justice, accountability, and the protection of fundamental freedoms. From pressing human rights violations to policy advocacy, their work resonates across communities, influencing change at both national and global levels. In the line of duty, it has found itself enmeshed in one controversy or the other with security agencies, especially in Nigeria, including the Nigerian military that has been actively engaged in fighting with insurgents, terrorists, and bandits in parts of the country for over a decade. Amnesty has also persistently accused the police of rights violations, excessive use of force, torture, forced disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. The security agencies have consistently denied these allegations of rights abuses, while accusing Amnesty of deliberate falsehoods and exaggerations aimed at destabilizing Nigeria. The recent allegations that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has been funneling funds to Boko Haram has had a lot riding on it. Many Nigerians are somewhat now looking at international non-governmental organizations from a different perspective. Now, join us as we delve into this critical conversation about the activities of Amnesty International in Nigeria, human rights protection, the challenges, the victories, and the road that lies ahead. We are joined by the country researcher of Amnesty International, Mr. Maurice Kanis-Chukwu. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Chukwu.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Also joining us is a lawyer and a writer, Mr. Ahmed Mewada. Thank you so much for finding time to join us.
Pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Right. So, let's begin this way, Mr. Chukwu. Maybe we should begin from perhaps the most pressing issue at the moment. Amnesty International has weighed in on the abduction of some students at the Benue State University in recent days, and indeed has criticized government and the security agencies for the occurrence of that incident. Beyond this kind of criticism that Amnesty makes, what exactly does Amnesty do to help in situations like this?
Thank you very much. First, we have to understand the role and the work we do at Amnesty International globally. As we all know, Amnesty International is a global movement, not just strictly an NGO. It's a movement of people from all over the world, about 150 countries, made up of over 10 million members globally. And all over the world, we do canvass for a world where human rights is enjoyed by all. It's not affiliated to any political party, religion, or creed, or tribe. Our emphasis and our focus is human rights. And wherever human rights is being violated, either by state authorities or state actors, or being violated either by private individuals or non-state actors, will step in to campaign for a fair and just world where everyone enjoys his human rights. As we may not know, Amnesty International started working in Nigeria in 1967. Our first report in Nigeria was released in 1968. So it's not about any government, it's not about any administration, it's not about the authorities, it's not about the security agencies. Our focus is human rights. And Nigeria as a country has subscribed to so many international human rights standards, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the whole lot of them, the African Charter, And they have obligations, we always insist, and indeed every other country where we work, to abide by the dictates of these conventions that they have subscribed to. And under Chapter 4, of course, of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria as amended, there are a series of human rights that have been provided. And once there's any abuse and violation, either by a state actor or non-state actor, will step in. And then for us at Amnesty International, I use the word that which maybe the authorities in Nigeria see out in that light. It's not about criticizing the government. It's about accountability, holding those involved in the protection of lives and properties to account. That's part of what we do. So in doing this, we're involved in research, in campaign, and in advocacy. So for all the incidents that have happened that will step into campaign or to research, we have our facts. We'll carry out thorough research, not based on media posts and all of those social media. No, we'll carry out thorough research.
What does your research entail?
It entails, depending on what context or what circumstance, one, if, for instance, there's protests, let's use the End Bad Governance protests. Our research is beyond what has been reported in the media. We'll go to the communities involved. We'll go to the individuals involved. We have documentary evidence, if it is possible, to go to their homes. If it's a non-conflict area that our security advice permits us, we visit the locus, what lawyers call the locus in quo. So we have our facts, we have our evidence, and they are credible, they are unassailable, and they are unimpeachable. And the purpose is not to indict anybody. It's to find out whose rights has been violated and to seek for accountability. It could be in terms of compensation, it could be in terms of reparation, it could be in terms of putting the person in a position, if someone has died, maybe it's the breadwinner of a family and has left children behind, maybe it's calling for accountability. And then for the government to also own up to the fact that it is the duty, primary duty of the government to protect life and property all over the country. So you would be surprised that when non-state actors violate human rights, we call on the government for accountability because it is the duty of the government to protect its people. It is the primary duty of government. So Amnesty is not against any administration, it's not against any government, it's not against any individual. In fact, our own is to campaign for a world where everyone enjoys his human right. For instance, I'll give you an example. When the president of Nigeria was sworn in, immediately following the swearing in 2023, we produced a human rights agenda, a document we titled Human Rights Agenda 2023, where we details human rights violations going on, made very good recommendations that if the present administration looks at the document, even if you don't read and look at the recommendations, you will find that this is advocacy. We are being proactive to ensure that these things do not occur.
Who was that document given to?
Of course, it was launched. The necessary parties were invited.
It may have been launched at a public event and all of that, but how are you sure that it got to the president or indeed, or even to the Ministry of Justice, to the police and to the security agencies that you were focused on?
Thank you very much. So we view all these parties you have mentioned as partners. Because if we all work together, human rights will be observed, violations and abuses will be reduced. So all these reports that we present, we produce, before we even release them, when you go through our reports, there's opportunity we give to every relevant government agency concerned to give us a feedback and their take on the report. We share our preliminary findings with them. We give them up to a month or two to respond. Sometimes we write reminders. It's when this is not forthcoming that we go to print. And when these feedbacks come, this is the violation that we have investigated, these are our findings, what is your response to the authorities? When I say the authorities, it could be the government, it could be the security agencies, and wait for their feedback. If their feedback comes in, we'll incorporate it into the report. If it comes in the form of a letter, we'll put it verbatim. So it's not about any government, it's not about any individual. Our work cuts across. Beyond issues of security, there are also various areas of work. Maybe subsequently I will go into that Amnesty International is involved in. So we'll continue to call for accountability and continue to demand accountability from both individuals and the authorities. For instance, recently we released a report on mob justice. It's individuals, private individuals, that take up the issue of mob justice. Once anything happens, you lynch the person. We produced a very good report with far-reaching recommendations, calling on both state actors and non-state individuals to observe human rights, even if anybody has committed a crime. In Nigeria, indeed all over the world, our laws have made provisions for redress.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you.
So, Barrister Mayweather, I'd like you to weigh in on this. I mean, having listened to him, you see that Amnesty is very much involved in advocacy, research, and production of reports based on their research findings. But there seems to be some gap between those research findings, those publications, and holding either authorities or individuals or groups accountable.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think after listening to my learned colleague from the Amnesty International speak concerning the Constitution, the structure, and the activities of Amnesty International, I'm not surprised to say that no wonder, as you use the word gap, but to me, I would say a failure on the side of Amnesty International. Pretty much all of these NGOs, you know, in their failure to really achieve anything of note regarding pushing the governments of the day, year in, year out, regime, or may I say government after another government, pushing them towards that utopian situation where people's human rights would really be observed. Why am I saying this? In law, there is what we call locus. If you claim somebody's human right has been violated, do you have the locus to actually, you know, push for redress? Are you the person whose human right has been violated? I want to know, is Amnesty International a Nigerian citizen? You know? Because when you want to enforce a human right, human right is like a social contract between the Nigerian government and the Nigerian citizen. And possibly, let me say, another individual, a human individual. It doesn't belong to an association. It doesn't belong to a corporate entity. It belongs to that human person. That person naturally recognized as a human being. That is where it belongs. So if there is a violation, I know that the law that I know in Nigeria, there are a lot of laws that actually make room for redress. If I, for example, as an individual, I've been arrested, or I've been maybe molested by the police, or somebody destroyed my property, and so on and so on, I know where to go, and I know how to actually enforce that my human rights should be. I don't have to wait for Amnesty International to come to my redress and say, oh, okay, government, you have to do this. If the government doesn't listen, I can't see how it is done. So permit me to say, from what I have gathered, Amnesty International needs to really readjust its position and its relationship with both the Nigerian government and the Nigerian citizens in order to be able to really get that to that point where you can say, if you go to court, oh, does this organization, does it have any cause of action against this individual or this non-governmental association or against this government in order for it to be heard? Otherwise, is it just an interloper? Has it just been making noise, you know, just playing to the gallery, and the government is not listening, and possibly no wonder. That is why nothing is being achieved, and they are really sinking in a lot of resources into this country. So can we really get to know if Amnesty International has been doing it all these years and they have not really been getting a result? You use the word gap. Really, to me, to my thinking, can we find out from Amnesty International, are they Nigerian citizens? As a non-governmental do they as individual, as an organization, do they have any human rights? When they go out to really, canvass for the human rights of others, natural human beings, what do they really, how do they hope to achieve it? How do they get themselves into that legal position as to enforce that fundamental human rights on behalf of that other person who should do it by himself? If they had even maybe giving him some little resources on his own to pursue his legal rights by himself. Possibly they ought to be really, given such assistance and legal advice, so to speak, or legal resources to enable communities, human individuals, and so on and so forth, to go after it, rather than they doing these things by themselves and getting in trouble with government.
All right, thank you very much.
Before I ask my next question, I need you to respond to some of those issues that they are strong on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Leonard Council and my colleague. The issues you've raised are basic issues that the Nigerian law has addressed. For instance, the issue of locus standi. The fundamental human rights enforcement procedure rules, the latest one, 2019, has practically removed the issue of locus when the issue has to do with human rights. That's why you see SERAP will go to court. This person goes to court against the government. So the issue of locus, so that they have the right to sue on behalf of anybody whose rights have been infringed, has been stated explicitly under our laws.
Can Amnesty sue in Nigeria?
Yes.
Has it sued
in Nigeria? I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Though I don't want that to be the focus of this conversation, because I would have loved to dwell so much on the work we do, but then because it has come up, Amnesty International Nigeria is registered in Nigeria under the Companies and Allied Matters Act as a Nigerian entity. So that's what people don't understand. In anywhere where we operate under the law of that country. So as a registered NGO in Nigeria, it has a locus to sue. Indeed, we recently got a judgment at the ECOWAS court where we joined as an amicus curiae, a friend of the court. The recent case of Catherine Ude against the federal government, that's DJ Switch, the NSAS case, where the court awarded damages to those involved in the violations that occurred at Lekki Tollgate and other parts of the country. Presently, there's also a case pending. We have carried out investigations of certain human rights violations, particularly in relation to enforced disappearances. And we have cases on that at the ECOWAS court. So when you go through the regional courts, in almost all the countries where Amnesty International operates, you see series of cases. So that is settled. We have gotten judgments. We have sued in the past. We have cases ongoing in Nigeria. And these are public.
In Nigeria? In Nigerian courts?
No, Nigerian court is not the locus. Because the regional courts, that's the work of the regional. Maybe you have to go and beyond this, maybe next time you invite us or lawyers to educate us on regional courts and how international organizations can sue. Those regional courts, what is their work? It's cases like this against states by other individuals or organizations against the state. That's why the courts are established. But that's by the way. So beyond that, I would really love us to take this conversation because from what has played out with our course of our work and the authorities, and with the sentiments my learned friend, with all due respect, has expressed, shows that there's a general misconstruing of our work generally, globally. Yes, so when people understand our work, you also understand the work we put on. This is a copy of the am I permitted to?
Yes.
Copy of the Human Rights Agenda we produced in 2023. Immediately the president was sworn in. If you go through it and go through all the recommendations we made, it's not an antagonism to the government. What are we saying? Guarantee freedom of expression. We brought out strategies and recommendations. What if this present incoming government does this issue of harassment of journalists, harassment of online bloggers will cease? Finding of journalists because someone has come to their station to say something, the next day the TV station is shut down or fined. These are issues we have addressed. Gender equality. These are the things we notice going on in the country. These are things we think. So many recommendations. How do we protect the rights of children? How do we protect economic, social, and cultural rights? For instance, with the fuel subsidy that was removed, that has led to a steep increase in cost of products and commodities, including Medicare, cost of housing, because these are all human rights. Right to housing, right to life, right to medication, right to health, right to hospital, and all of that. So we have made so many publications. This is our publication, Tainted Cell. We published attacking Shell for trying to divest from Nigeria, when they have not, all the violations they have done for over the 6 days of the operation in the Niger Delta, they have not addressed them. Cleanup has not been concluded, and they want to quickly divest and leave the country. This is not attacking the government.
Okay.
Well, I'm coming. Instantly killed. This is a report we published recently, late last year, on mob justice. How law enforcement failures establish Nigeria wave of mob violence is not attacking the government. With credible recommendations. Our job is to shoot, slaughter, and kill. This is our intensive review. Look at the volume of the report about the atrocities committed by Boko Haram in this country, with credible recommendations on what should be done. This is not attacking the government.
Mr. Chukwu,
so the government don't respond to all of this. The only one they respond is maybe we have done a report on protest and people died and we report it.
Yes.
So we do a lot of...
That's precisely the point.
Yes.
Because
So
most times, the reports that are put out there in the public domain are the ones in which you appear to always focus on government and security agencies.
Look at this report, Harvest of Deaths.
Yes.
Report on the intertribal clashes in Benue and other places. 3 years of bloody clashes between farmers and herders in Nigeria.
Would you agree
Detailed reports with recommendations of what should be done to stop the farmer herders crisis.
Would you agree?
Is it attacking the government?
Mr. Chukwu, would you agree that perhaps Amnesty has not done enough to publicize some of these publications and would usually publicize those that are against the government?
No.
You have said that most of your reports, based on research, are unimpeachable. I want to quote you. They are unimpeachable.
Absolutely.
But on several occasions, the military and the police have questioned and indeed tried to impeach some of those reports.
All right. I did say earlier that the issues of reaction of the Nigerian authorities to our work has been credibly so well discussed, and our official positions have been made public. And I don't want that to form the focus of this conversation. But I have to add that we see the police and the military as partners. And in these reports, for instance, I have the Harvest of Death, the Bloody August, that listed the reports and all of that. If you look at it, the recommendations we have made here, if these recommendations are applied, people can actually come and protest, and the guidelines, international guidelines provided for protest will be adhered to, and everybody will protest, air their grievances as allowed them by the Constitution, Chapter 4, and international conventions, and go home. So these reports are not antagonizing the government. They are bringing out issues we have researched and brought to the fore. So I don't want to join an issue on this conversation with the authorities. They have written us, and we have responded through our lawyer, and that is where we are on it. But our reports are credible, and they are not fabricated, and they are not false.
Mm. So I come back to the question I asked earlier. Would you agree that perhaps Amnesty is not doing enough to publicize some of these, but usually would publicize those that appear to antagonize government?
Fantastic. Good question. Good question. Thank you so much for that question. So Amnesty has a procedure for everything we do. It has a procedure. If the report is 1 page, it gets the same publicity that a 100-page report gets. For instance, this is a harrowing journey, access to justice for women and girl survivors of rape in Nigeria. The same publicity this report got from Amnesty International, including online publicity, the launch process. Amnesty is an organization of procedure. It's the same one that Bloody August got. But then it depends on what the media and the authorities want to feast on. For instance, in some countries, this report on rape that women suffer would have gained so much traction, but it did not. This was 2023 on death penalty. We did a lot of campaign. In fact, just recently I was asked at the National Human Rights Commission presenting a report on death penalty. Those ones don't give media attention. Beyond these reports, because we are still just at one stage of our work, reports. Beyond reports, I will still go on, if the time permits me, and your question goes to that direction, to say other areas of work. This is the human rights record of all over the world. Perhaps it's only when this is released in Nigeria that the Nigerian authorities will start saying it's fabricated. All over the world, all the countries in the world, this is 2024, 2023, released April 2024. In April 2025, you will see that of 2024. So Amnesty does a lot of work, research and advocacy. This can actually be policy documents. And each one comes with recommendation on what, if applied, things could go on. This is our submission. As Nigeria was making its submission to the Universal Periodic Review of Nigeria that came up in 2023 December at Geneva, UN, we also went. This is what we submitted. And we gave it the same publicity that we gave. Recently, we published a report, how to help girls that have suffered Boko Haram atrocity, recently, to pick up their lives together. This is the Hausa version. But they don't get publicity. And it's the same process, I can assure you, of launching of our reports, social media action, engagement, advocacy. In fact, recently, we've been to so many states in the north, outside launching it in Abuja, so many states in the north, to campaign on this, even translated it to Hausa. I'm speaking with facts and evidence.
Okay.
All these are not attacks on the government.
I'll come back to that. Beyond launching these reports and making them available, as we have seen now, don't you think that Amnesty should go the extra mile to bring this to the attention of the general public? Because the few that we know of or that we see are the ones that we engage with.
You see, I appreciate the information given by my learned colleague that Amnesty is a registered NGO in Nigeria. However, unfortunately, that does not make the ordinary Nigerian to view Amnesty as a Nigerian company, NGO. We are still looking at Amnesty as an international NGO. So that lack of being a bona fide citizen more or less still gets us to view it as a foreigner. That is where you start. For a Nigerian, whether government or an individual and so on and so forth, to really feel at home with you, want to open up and associate with you and really listen to you or whatever, he has to really know that you recognize that entity called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You recognize the structures that come, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You recognize the sovereignty of the state. You have to. I don't know, from my own observation from a distance, as a Nigerian who is really very, very much aware, to be honest with you, I'm yet to really agree that Amnesty Nigeria is really, in tune with the sovereignty of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and it is really willing to sink or swim with the Federal Republic of Nigeria when the chip matters. Let me give you an example. I believe Amnesty International is foreign funded, possibly from the Western nations. If so, where does the funds, where do the funds that really got Nigeria into this terrible situations that we are in, IMF, World Bank loans and whatever, where do they come from? It's from these same Western nations. Why we do not have good life, social securities, why we do not, even the ones available are being taken away from us, subsidies, oil subsidies, and so on and so forth. It's because of these loans. The IMF will give you a loan and say, look, these are our conditionalities. You have to, go ahead with this policy, and because of that, the cost of living for a Nigerian has deteriorated to such a level that we cannot really make ends meet. If amnesty, and that is withdrawal of your human right, if you don't have a dignity of life to live in a dignified way, you don't have a human right. You don't have. It's not about just freedom of speech and so on and so. You have to. You have life. You have liberty. You have freedom. You have. You have dignity of life. You have property, right to property, or whatever. When the government is giving you by one hand, taking by the other, then there is no such. And where does all this come from? It comes from these same people that are coming to say they are interested in our human rights. That is why it is difficult, honestly, for us to partner with these people and say, okay, yes, we know they mean well. We may know they mean well, but if you really, you are intelligent, you sit down, okay, what are they really saying? You did mention how there are allegations that you said was actually funding, this thing that is causing our lack of fundamental, chasing our people from their localities, their abodes, killing, and maiming needlessly through the Boko Haram, whatever. It is being alleged that they are coming from these same people that have sent the Amnesty International to us.
No. Please,
please let me
come back to you.
Those are my allegations. Those are I'm just expressing an ordinary Nigerian's view so that you can educate us. It's an opportunity for you to actually, tell us that, look, no, we are not like this, we are not like this. But I'm telling you, this is how you can sell your organization to Nigerians, by actually making us understand that you are not an enemy among us, but you are really, really part of us.
All right, Mr. Chukwu. So the issue I think you want to respond to here has to do with how Amnesty International operates, its source of funding, because let me tell you, the perspective that Nigerians are beginning to look at since this United States Agency for International Development allegations were made a few weeks back is to the extent that most of the international NGOs that are working in Nigeria are actually being funded and financed from sources that are not as friendly as they intend or they pretend to be.
Yes.
For Nigerians.
All right, thanks so much. Very important point you raised. So we have to understand there is a distinction between human rights organizations and humanitarian organizations. Just the same way there's distinction between human rights law and international humanitarian law. So for Amnesty International, we are funded by our members, donation and dues from members. We have over 10 million members all over the world. We do not receive donation from governments, and we do not give out donation. We don't fund anybody. We don't fund any organization. The little money we get from members, donations and payments and dues and all of that, and subscription, we use it for our advocacy, research, and our publication, and our campaigns.
Are these members individuals?
Individual
or
members.
Corporate members?
Individual members. Individual members. We do not receive funding from governments. That's why we can do our work in Nigeria and hold our head high. We do not receive funding from the rich men or industries, captains of industries, or organizations. If there's anyone, this is national TV, that will say, I have funded Amnesty International in Nigeria. Let him come up.
So nothing can be traced from USAID, for instance, to Amnesty?
USAID doesn't fund Amnesty. USAID is aid.
At any point in time?
United States aid.
Yes.
International aid for international development. We are not involved in development work like the other.
Yeah, but we have seen now that USAID was not only involved in development work.
No, I don't want to delve into the arguments and that because it's not my beat. I don't want to delve into it. The USAID have released a statement, and if we want clarifications on the allegation of the congressman from the US, we can invite them to clarify their position. But we at Amnesty International, we are not funded by USAID. We do not receive funding from any of those international organizations or corporate organization or any government. That's why we can look at any government, no matter who the government is. Once there's abuse and violation of human rights, we'll seek for redress. And now, some of the important things you mentioned are actually the work that Amnesty International do. Because you mentioned where there's poverty and other, where is human rights, where there's no security, where is human rights. That's why we are campaigning. We are producing a report on how Boko Haram could be stopped, on their source of funding. Nobody's even talking about the Southeast Nigeria. For now in Nigeria, Amnesty International is part of few organizations that have taken time to start research on what's going on in Southeastern Nigeria, so that we can produce a document we can give to the government and to everybody and to the general public with recommendations. Right to housing, part of our work. You see, Amnesty International in Nigeria doing a lot of work on forced eviction. Durumitu, Gishiri, Otodogbame in Lagos, Waterfront in Port Harcourt. You see us do a lot of campaign work on forced evictions. In some cases, we have even gone ahead to interface with the state authorities, because the law has made some certain provisions, particularly international conventions, for there to be an eviction, particularly in indigenous communities. One, there has to be adequate notice. That's our campaign. There has to be compensation, and there has to be resettlement. So what you find is that sometimes there's no notice, and you see the bulldozers. So this is part of our work. Right to education. Amnesty International is one of the few organizations that are saying that Section 6 of the Constitution of Nigeria that says these rights, economic, social, and cultural rights are not justiciable, cannot continue to apply. That these rights could become justiciable. It is the duty of government to provide people with water. This is part of our work. That's why you see our work on maternal health of women. That's why you see our work on education. In fact, part of our work beyond research is human rights education. And that is where Amnesty has done more work than this research will produce. If you permit me, I can go out to start reading out the human rights education work we have done, including media training. As I speak with you, between December and this January, we have trained over 1,000 journalists in Abuja here and Kano on how to, better report human rights, how to, the almighty Cyber Crimes Prohibition Act 2015 that has now become a snare on the part of every journalist. How do we navigate this? What is digital campaigning? So beyond these publications, we do a lot of work. We are doing our intervarsity debate was highly publicized last year, where we gathered almost all the universities in the country. And they were debating on human rights. You need to see young people. And indeed, there's a future for this country.
Well, Mr. Chukwu, if you permit me,
yes,
I'd like to ask you about what is being described as a complex security situation in parts of the country, particularly in the Northeast and in the Northwest, and the role that international organizations such as yours are said to be playing. In fact, some of them have been accused of being collaborators with the non-state actors that are operating in these places. So what do you think Amnesty can and should do in supporting both security efforts and human rights protection in these places?
Thanks so much. A very good question. So that goes back to my categorization of the distinction between human rights organizations and humanitarian organizations. Humanitarian organizations operate mostly on ground in areas where there are conflicts. For instance, Northeast, North Central, maybe every other place in the country. I don't want to start mentioning those humanitarian organizations. We know them. You're top journalists. But for us, we are a human rights organization. Our concern is in this fight against insurgency, has human rights been observed by both the state actors, that's agents of government, and the non-state actors? These are the insurgents. And for these two sides, we have produced a report. For instance, I did mention this report. Our job is to shoot, slaughter, and kill. Maybe I will leave this with you. This details there's nothing you want to know about Boko Haram and its operation in Nigeria that our research didn't reveal in this research. With how many recommendations? Thousands of what could be done. The recommendations continue.
Just go ahead, yeah.
This is, could serve in some countries, this could serve as a policy document for states to look at and even begin to look at what we have found and see how we can. So our own is research. As Amnesty International, our work is research, advocacy, and campaign. We are not on ground in those local areas, those areas where these things are happening, to either provide relief or do provide housing and all of that. There are other organizations, the humanitarian organizations.
So if you are not on ground in some of those areas, how do you carry out your research as to be able to unravel the human rights abuses that you talk about all the time?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good question. So when I say we are not on ground, it doesn't mean that we can't go to the areas where there are conflicts and carry out our research. We have our research methodologies. But on ground means that, like when you go to the Northeast, you will see so many organizations that have bases there providing one relief or assistance or the other, including sanitation, what we call WASH, including housing, including medication and all of that. Amnesty is not a humanitarian organization. So our research, maybe our research methodology is included in all our research. For instance, this research on Boko Haram, when you open it, the research methodology, you will see how we get our facts. We don't hide anything.
Has Amnesty International had any interface at any point in time with that organization in the course of its research?
No, that's not my bit to go into. We can't, there are certain things we can't start talking about, but be it as it may, how we get our information, we don't hide anything. We explain them in our reports, in the methodology page.
Okay.
That's it.
Barrister,
thank you.
Moving forward, what do you consider to be the biggest human rights challenges in Nigeria today that you think that Amnesty International should focus on?
Okay. Before I go there, I think this discussion has opened my eyes to the real issue why Amnesty International has not been able to break through the Nigerian government. No. Please, you mentioned you've been writing reports upon reports, volumes, they are all there, and then nothing is being done. This thing. How do you make the Nigerian government give attention to this? How? You have issues of legitimacy. It is, you may say no, but I think it is very, very critical. And the more you refuse to accept, the less you will succeed. You have to work towards succeeding to make the Nigerian government and the non-governmental listen to know that yes, you are actually there. For them, you are a party, you are a partner, and you are not an antagonist. And in doing that, you have to open up. A question was made to you about funders. You know, you did say individuals. You didn't even give us an idea of this thing. Are you actually likely in your own website or whatever to open up these things so that people will actually see you for who you are? That is my own decision. Apart from that, what they need to, after they have scaled through that hurdle, which is a very big hurdle, for them, after scaling the hurdle, and then we are able to accept them, I understand that they are with us and this thing. You know, the very, very, very serious human rights issues that I think Amnesty International should really focus on is the issue of the right to human dignity in this country. Right to life is there, but I don't think, yes, many people have been killed by Boko Haram. Government, you know, or government agencies, sometimes the police can shoot somebody, you know, the military, they are doing, yes, it's an issue, whatever. But the point is that if you just put everything on a scale, what is really weighing the people of this country down the most? What is the most critical thing? You people have been scoring us, okay, Nigeria is the poorest country, number this and this, you know, on the scale of maybe among, is it 100 and whatever, you know, we are closer to the bottom of this because the quality of life is terrible, is bad. How did we get there? You know, so government is not living up to its responsibility to guarantee, it is a human right to guarantee the fact that we are actually living in dignity and having quality of life. How do we do it? You put pressure, and understand you are a pressure group. Labor organization is also another whatever. How do you work with labor? How do you watch labor doing its own thing, or do you synergize? Do you associate with Nigerian labor to see to it that yes, your activities are in tandem, so that you can put, you know, your advocacies, you know, that coalesce, you know, put them together so that you can actually fight a common cause, or you are actually a lone wolf doing your own thing and labor is doing its own thing. After that, once the quality of the Nigerian life is well secured, I think you may even realize that those places where there are the police that is out to kill somebody because of 5 naira, 10 naira, or whatever, his quality of life is well off. You know, he's not living under that serious desperation of family life and family demands and so on. So the psychology that gets him to be trigger happy is not there. You know, this bribery and corruption that, you know, is getting into even our homes now. We are accusing the government, but we are also participating in it, or whatever. It's because we are not making ends meet. Once you can address that issue, get the government to really live up to its social contract to the people, that everything within what is the necessity of life is affordable for everyone, then I think you would have been well on your way to achieving something, you know, as an organization. Otherwise, to me,
Mr. Chukwudi, I think the point that, if I get him correctly, the first point he made is about perception. The way Nigerians, government, and even individuals perceive the organization called Amnesty International. They see you more as a foreign organization. If not that we have talked about the fact that it's registered in Nigeria, now many people do not know. But that perception there is that, oh, you are a foreign organization, a foreign interloper. In fact, that is the impression that is created each time government agencies respond to your reports. So how do you go about correcting that? They say perception is reality.
So thanks very much. Your questions are very important. One, all our policies, our source of funding, who are major funders and donors, they are all contained in amnesty.org on our website, amnesty.org. Every information you need to know, including who are the head of organization. And then there's also a Nigerian website, amnesty.org.ng, the Amnesty Nigeria peculiar website, where you can also find all the work we have done, including those behind the organization. Amnesty International has come of age and absolutely has nothing to hide.
I want to believe you, but not very many Nigerians have access to such, to your website, for instance, to know this information. So shouldn't you do a lot more in terms of enlightenment?
We do a lot of enlightenment, particularly, that's when I said human rights education. For instance, if time permits me, I'll read up a few things we've done recently in trying to make the public understand our work and continue to observe human rights.
Just talk about them. Talk them through, briefly, because we have limited time. Yes.
So we've done a lot of community sensitization, particularly of women, to understand their rights. We organized this last year at the International Women's Day, where over 150 women participated. We took this to the local communities. We've taken our campaign in Abuja here to the office of the traditional rulers' palace and to the markets. And then we're also organizing, to catch them here, organizing these intervarsity debates of all the universities on the country. Last year, we did the preliminaries online, and then the finals happened in Abuja here. Last year, it happened at Bayes University here in Abuja, where we continue to the topics are human rights related, educate young people on human rights. And then we also organized a youth conference last year in October 2024, May 2024, that brought together over 200 young people. We continue to educate them on human rights. And then just recently, we carried out a campaign of anti-bullying and child rights to secondary schools. Excuse me, I'm coming. And then we also did children's resilience through sports. We also use sports as a tool. In fact, myself, I was present at the Interfaith IDP camp in Gurukul, Nasarawa, and all of that. So beyond all of this, like media appearances, the one we are doing now, we have a lot of media appearances, we have a lot of social media presence, and we cannot be everywhere. The world has gone digitalized. So we continue to educate people on human rights. We're also going to the schools to establish human rights clinics. We established in the University of Calabar last year, and then we also organize events for youths and all of that, virtual conference and all of that. And then last year in October, we also organized International Day of the Girl Child Program.
So beyond this sensitization and education,
yes,
how does Amnesty International intend to ensure the integrity of the work that the massive work that you are doing?
So
right
our integrity is unimpeachable and unassailable, and all through the years we have operated all over the world, we have remained above board. If a clause or a sentence in any of these reports is found to be false, it discredits not just the report, but the entire organization. So our works are thorough, well-researched, and fact-checked. We can take it anywhere, you can take it to the bank. And that is why we have been able to exist all these years, over 70 years, and still counting.
Okay.
So, Oga, sir, for your issue of legitimacy and all of that you keep mentioning, we also need to it's also the issue of perception, continue to educate ourselves about the operations of international organizations all over the world. That is why the UN will have an office in Nigeria. That's why you have embassies. Every country is interrelated. There's this operation of international law. There are international organizations operating in different countries, providing one service or the other.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that in that country that there's a struggle for legitimacy between them and the country. The country belongs to the owner, it belongs to the Nigerians.
We must go,
and all Amnesty staff in Nigeria are all Nigerians.
Okay.
The culture of, before I accept that message, who is the messenger, is there. It doesn't seem my learned colleague has actually understood what we are saying. When the last question came, it was, when you are doing your advocacies, were you actually also informing them who you are beyond just the program? You just went ahead and you told us this and that.
Everybody knows Amnesty. People know who we are. People know who we are. That's why people really easily embrace us and give us information and volunteer information.
It's okay. It's all right.
And we hope to continue to campaign for human rights.
Mr. Maurice Canis Kuku is the researcher of Amnesty International in Nigeria. And we have also been joined by Mr. Ahmed Mewada, a lawyer and a noted writer. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.